Hi everyone, today let's talk about the FOMC.
Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started.
So moving over to the FOMC, you can see they did not say really anything crazy. They're still stuck to that 2%, and they did say that they are going to cut this year. And really, he sounded very dovish across the board. He said strong hiring does not stop the Fed from cutting rates. They're trying to play that balancing role between not cutting too soon and allowing inflation to come back. And he did mention that here you can see higher inflation data does not stop the overall downtrend that we're seeing. So basically, he downplayed that data that we've seen over the last 2 months, which is interesting. And at the same time, he's saying we do need to cut rates in order to stimulate the economy, and we don't want to be late to that either. The economy has been very strong, and he did reiterate that several times, especially talking about the jobs data. But like I said, none of those things have been talked about in terms of a hindrance for the Fed. In terms of balance sheet, they did say that they are going to continue to let some things roll off of their balance sheet, but he did mention that they're going to slow down that roll off, but that does not mean a change to the target level for their balance sheet. So they're going to roll off to the same level, but they might take a little bit longer than they expected previously. So overall, again, a little bit dovish. And the last thing I want to mention here, stocks were up, and I think this is really based on the fact that the Fed did raise their guidance for the GDP for the economy for this year. The numbers were previously in the 1 to 2% range, and now all of the numbers for this quarter are above 2%, so they're projecting a stronger economy, and they're still projecting cuts and inflation going down, so everything is actually better now than what we saw previously. In terms of cuts, we're still not looking at those until July, in my opinion, or potentially even September at this point with the comments that he gave here today, but markets didn't really care about that. Stronger GDP projections, stronger economy, stronger jobs, and still getting cuts. We basically got everything that we wanted from the Fed here today. Moving over to the indicators, starting off with fear and greed. As you would suspect, these numbers went up. Strength, still in extreme greed. Momentum, still extreme greed. Breadth, still hovering. It did tick up here today. Put call ratio, still in greed. Volatility cratering here today. We'll see where that ended up. And then bonds, still in greed or extreme greed. You can see junk bond demand going even lower versus investment grade. So markets still have no fear across the board. Moving over to seasonality, you can see we are still in this bullish period. Sideways chop to bullish, and that makes sense. We did get a bullish push here today. You can see the 20th, slight uptrend, and it's really that way through the end of the month. So bullish seasonality here, or at least sideways chop. Moving over to the economic calendar, you can see across the board, pretty much everything was in line with expectations. Crude a little bit below, which is better than expected. Fed interest rate right in line. And then tomorrow we do have still a lot of economic data. Philly Fed manufacturing expected to be negative. Global US manufacturing PMI, composite PMI, as well as services PMI, all here at 9:45. And then we do have existing home sales at 10 o'clock. So still quite a bit of economic data coming out tomorrow. I don't expect any of that to be crazy. I think the FOMC was the big one for this week. Moving over to max pain, pretty interesting now that we are all the way up at 521. You can see first call wall was 515, second call wall 520, and it'll be interesting to see if we can hold those gains into the Friday session. Obviously, everything looks super bullish with the push that we saw today, but just keep these in mind. There are still 4 really strong call walls with really no put support here below it for the end of the week. Moving over to the charts, you can see obviously it was straight up after the FOMC meeting. It was sideways chop into it. We talked about this setup yesterday that looked very clean. Dip low, dipped early in the pre-market yesterday, higher low from that first low, and then you can see we rallied into the end of the session, held sideways, and then rallied here today. So the setup did continue, and it was a good one. You can see tons of volume on that move. I would expect it to continue. And you can see we are up a little bit more after hours. Everything looks clean. Resistance here would be up at the trend line around 530. We'll see if it can hold that gain. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish. Everything looks good here on this to continue into tomorrow's session. Doesn't mean we can't see some pullbacks a little bit, but right now this looks very clean on strong volume. Moving over to the SPY, you can see that push here on the Tasty charts, really strong off of that 8 EMA. Interesting, again, we did not see any volume spikes, but momentum did roll to bullish there. Looking at it on the 4-hour chart, you can see we did hit that upper ATR band. You would expect that off of such a strong move. Momentum bullish. You can see the volume did come through on that first candle of the day, not so much on the second candle. Again, kind of interesting. We'll see how that plays out tomorrow. I would expect a continuation, but understand that we're starting to hit that upper ATR band here on the 4-hour chart. And then looking at the hourly, you can see obviously we have overthrown it pretty strongly. 8 EMA down at 518.81. So again, might see some pullbacks early in tomorrow's session. just to tag that level and then get continuation in my opinion. But overall, everything still looks super bullish. Even with that overthrow, you can see something like that where you overthrow, come back, retest the 8 EMA, continue higher. In this case, it did drop off, but based on the catalyst of the FOMC, I would expect this to continue higher. Moving over to the NASDAQ, similar thesis. You can see this low, higher low setup, rallied out of that, held that same gain, held the 21 EMA, and then pushed higher, almost to the trend line. Resistance for the trend is at 446 or so, and then I have a level 446.66. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish. Looks like it's set to push to the next level here, in my opinion, and it is up quite a bit after hours. And then if we break that all-time high, the next trend resistance would be all the way up around 456.50 or so. I don't think we're going to go that high, at least in the short term, but it does give you some price targets. You can see we tried to dip here and everything looks good going into tomorrow's session. Moving over to the Qs on the Tasty charts, you can see that big push up here today. Again, no volume on these candles on the daily chart, which is interesting. Momentum rolling to bullish on the volume weighted MACD. And then looking at the 4-hour chart, you can see we didn't quite hit that upper ATR on the Qs. That's going to be 446.27, so it gives you just a little bit more room. Again, strong volume on that first candle of the day. On the 4-hour chart, still looks good, and you can see we took out those ATR stops, so that's also quite bullish coming off of that 144 EMA. And then looking at the hourly chart, same as the SPY here, overthrew it quite powerfully. Big volume on those candles. Again, indicating to me we might see a bit of a pullback, 442.20, touch those levels and then continue higher. And you can actually see a little bit of bearish momentum on the hourly volume weighted MACD, which is a little bit of a bearish indicator. I wouldn't expect it to pull back a lot, but at least a little. Moving over to the IWM and the Dow here, you can see the Russell pushed all the way to that 206.50 level, so we're right at resistance. Very powerful day, 1.98%, momentum rolling to bullish, RSI rolling to bullish. So we have bullish conditions across the indicators here. It looks very good. If that 206.50 level breaks, 208.22 is my next level, and then 212.10. You also have a little bit of trend resistance here around 210 also, but this looks very good here. Again, coming off of this low, higher low, didn't even test the 55. Big move higher. I would expect this to continue. And then similarly on the Dow, we said it looked very good yesterday, breaking above all the EMAs and SMAs, and sure enough, we got another 1% move here. Took out that next trend line, and the next trend resistance up around 396.30 or so. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish, strong volume. I would expect it to break higher. I don't really have any levels. This is a new all-time high here for the Dow, so everything still looks clean pretty much across the board. Moving over to the Mag 7, you can see this also was bullish on the day, 1.36%. Momentum continues to roll to bullish. RSI right at the SMA. If it's going to break higher, it needs to do it now. And it does kind of look like it. Consolidation, break, needs to do it here up to that trend around 376.50, which would give it quite a decent move, and that would take markets with it. So Mag 7 looking pretty strong going into tomorrow's session. Moving over to Apple and Tesla, we've been bullish on Apple here for a while, and it does look strong again here today, up 1.47%, pushing to that 179.69 level. Does say it has some movement here after hours. Pretty decent selling actually. 0.5% and then 0.79%, giving back almost all its gains on the day. So that'll be interesting. We'll see how that holds. Needs to hold that trend line in the 21 EMA here on the hourly chart at 176.29. See if it can hold those gains. But otherwise, the daily chart did look very good. Closed right at the top of the candle. Wonder why it's selling off so much after hours. 176.15, need that to hold. And then the 21 EMA there on the daily chart at 176.20. So need that to hold as well. And then momentum and RSI both very bullish. Tesla, on the other hand, you can see we did get a bullish day. 2.5%. Momentum rolling to bullish, so it still looks good. Next level, 177.70. 21 EMA at 183.85. RSI breaking higher. Everything looks good here, at least for a couple more points. The trend is still down overall, but it does seem like a short-term bounce, at least to that 21 EMA. Moving over to the Tasty charts here for Apple, I just wanted to take a look at that move that we saw. So this is not unusual. You can see we got into this third ATR band here on the hourly chart, pulled all the way back into the mid-range, held those stops, pushed up again, pulled back, held the stops, pushed up again, hit that third ATR band. So this is still trending up, but we are right there at the stops here at 175.83. Momentum still bullish here, and the volume still looks okay. And then looking at it on the 4-hour chart, you can see we almost hit that ATR band, hit some resistance at the 144 EMA, still holding that 8 EMA area, and we're above all the other EMAs, so still looks okay, but definitely showing a little bit of weakness in those after hours. Might be something to watch early in tomorrow's session. Moving over to Microsoft and NVIDIA, these both continue to go higher here today. So Microsoft right at its all-time high close, it's right at the trend line, pulled back from here last time, but Does kind of look like it's going to break now. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish. You can see it broke that SMA, retested, and then it's breaking higher. And then looking at NVDA, positive 1.09%. Momentum is still bearish. RSI ticking higher, volume not really there. So that's a little bit more concerning, but of course it is NVIDIA, so see what it can do. It is up more after hours. Trend resistance up around 943. Moving over to staples and discretionaries, both of these had a strong move on the day, 0.3 and 1.49%. Obviously, with the dovish news, that's going to be a bigger play into that discretionaries and risk on move, but it doesn't mean that staples can't go higher. It does look good. It's down just a few cents after hours, but that trend resistance up around 76.50. Momentum ticking towards bullish, RSI ticking towards bullish, and then similarly here, discretionaries, very powerful day, gapped higher and rallied back above all the EMAs and SMAs. 185.36 would be the next level of resistance. Momentum, RSI, everything looks good there to that next level. You can see it's also holding a higher low. Trend resistance up around 187.25, and I would expect it to get into that range based on what we've been seeing. Moving over to oil and gas, this trend continues here, so oil and gas up 0.78. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish, everything looks good up to that 154 level. That's not all-time highs here for oil and gas, but it is a pretty important level here back from September of 23. And it does seem like it's going to hit that pretty much no matter what at this point. It's just a few points off, and it's been such a strong run. That would be the key level that people are going to be looking for resistance. And then looking at energy. Energy, on the other hand, is very close to its all-time highs. You can see all-time highs here for energy up around 94.60. Critical level at 92.80 from these previous wick highs. Let's go full screen here. You could definitely argue to add a level probably around 194.60 or so. Let's go ahead and do that right at those all-time highs. Just to give some perspective, that's your all-time high going back here to November of 22. And it does seem like this is headed in that direction again. Did see a little bit of weakness, 0.14 to the downside here, but I just think that's a little bit of breathing here. It's super extended. You can see momentum fading just slightly, RSI super overbought. I wouldn't expect this to stop before we at least test these previous levels. We are testing some of them, but that 92.80 level is important, I believe. Moving over to breadth on the 20 and the 50 day, as you would suspect, both of these were up very strong. They looked powerful yesterday, and we expected them to go higher here today, and sure enough they did. Momentum rolling to bullish, and then on the 50 we did step back towards bullish here. RSI is breaking higher, everything looks clean here to the upside, so holding a higher low, looking to push higher, everything looks bullish. Moving over to yields, as you would suspect with the dovish Fed, we did get yields moving a little bit lower, and that was bullish for markets. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish. You can see that big wick higher and then breaking below the 21 and the 9 EMAs. Next level 4.5 here. I wouldn't expect it to move too much lower because we have not actually seen a cut yet, but we're definitely anticipating some cuts. Jerome Powell was very confident when it came to cuts this year. 3 cuts still on the board. The question is, when are those going to happen? I think the first one might be July or even September, but they will happen at some point, and yields are reacting to that. Moving over to the dollar, again, as you would suspect with the dovish Fed, we did get weakness in the dollar. Big move down on that candle, again propping up markets, broke below all of the medium-term EMAs and SMAs. You just have the 9 on the daily chart sitting down there at 103.2 or so. Momentum still bullish, but RSI breaking down. You need that 9 EMA to hold if it's going to do it. But we're rejecting off of that trend line now, and this does look quite a bit more bearish. Just look how bearish that momentum is. Super oversold on the hourly chart. But I feel like yields and the dollar were thinking that the Fed was going to be more hawkish, and they just didn't do it. Moving over to bonds, we got J&K actually making some big moves here over the last 2 days. It was very powerful yesterday, and that confirmed that I expected more upside here today. And then sure enough, we did get that move in equities and in J&K, 0.34, headed towards that upper resistance for this consolidation around 95.38. And then the next level for me, 95.61. Strong volume, strong momentum. Everything looks bullish here on J&K. Held higher lows. Again, looks bullish. And that is confirming the rally. And then looking at TLT, it was actually down a little bit, which was surprising even with yields going lower. Still holding that trend, still holding the 144 EMA at 92.48. But I think the movement here on TLT might be kind of slowed down. We've had a lot of volatility in TLT, and typically the TLT is not super volatile, and I think this might have kind of leveled out now at this point, as yields have kind of priced in what the Fed is going to do over the next few years, at least until we get some changes, either in the economic or inflation data or from the Fed themselves. Moving over to volatility, you can see move index cratering, VIX cratering, as you would suspect. Almost to the trend line, that would be 1290, and then I have a level 1275. We'll see if it can get into that zone. I would expect it to. You can see that 55 EMA finally broke. Got below it here, held the level, retested that area, held the level. At the 55, tested this again here, and then again yesterday, and then today it broke down massive. So selling makes sense. Markets are going higher. We'll see what happens if we get below 1275 or even all the way down to 12.5. But right now, momentum and RSI are both bearish. Moving over to my accounts, I'm a little bit frustrated here. I should have made more money. I forgot to roll out these freaking calls here on my shares. So those shares are going to get called away, which is a bit frustrating. I'll be looking to establish a position tomorrow. Again, pretty frustrating. I would have rolled these out to the 441s like I did here on the poor man's covered call. That would give me a max profit of 444 with almost a $3 credit on what I got there. Had to pay to do that a little bit, but still should make a little bit of money. You can see $160 of hypothetical losses, even with the shares sitting at 444. So this should be a bit of a profit tomorrow, and this would have been more profits here, but I just didn't do it, which is very frustrating. And then looking at the IWM, rolled out to 205 for 2 days from now. Again, had to pay a little bit to do that, but seems like it's working out so far, and you can see it's even up after hours. So looking to make another $1 or so on that position while still having some decent protection. Kind of slow rolling the rollout here a little bit. I think we might see a little bit of pullbacks, but we'll see how it goes. Overall, everything's still bullish and made some decent money on the day. Let me know down in the comment section what you thought of Jerome Powell and his dovish comments, and will that send markets even higher tomorrow, or will we see some pullbacks? Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.